Anyways, welcome back, Team DWC. It's your boy TWP Popcorn. Y'all already know what time it is. 6 p.m. on Wednesday. If not, it'll be 10 a.m. on Saturday or Sunday. If not, it'll be the short videos that y'all see constantly hitting your news feed because you know your boy keep it consistent with the popping. Shout out to the popping because you know we ain't stopping no time soon. Anyways, because y'all already know, Team DWC, we gonna cultivate a lot of things for y'all to be, checking out. You know what I mean? Web Plenty's 2023 and beyond, right? Right. Of course, we got some videos to review today. And I'm only going to hold y'all up as long as I need to. As long as I need to, right? Right. Yeah, we'll get that squared off. Oh, right there. That's the full perfect screen. Let me get the chat on there. Boom. And I'm just leave y'all alone, let the videos play. Hell, I'll be back here talking my shit in the background while I roll up. You ain't got you nothing to roll up. You better get you a consultation, man. We'll have you growing and producing a harvest within a few months. Hell, few months. Change your life, right? That's your boy. Shout out to the Buy Me a Coffee. Appreciate that, right? As y'all see, today's video topic is going to be this afroman trial because I appreciate having some information about it, and I'll try to keep you guys updated with my updates that I get caught up with. It ain't my business, but I'm going to be all in it, right? All right. Welcome back, Team UWC. It's your boy TWP Popcorn, back with another video. Y'all know how we gonna do. We gonna sit here, chill, ride it out. Boom. Let's go to the theater mode. Show y'all how I'm gonna put together this new intro. I'm clipping up, getting right. Come on, man. I got my phone right. Come on. Wait a minute. I'll stay here. But then I got to go. I understand. If y'all can't watch more than 10 minutes of the video, I understand. Because when I look at my analytics, that's where it say y'all at. Anyways, TDWC, y'all know what time it is. 6 p.m. Wednesday, 10 a.m. Saturday, Sunday. What we gonna do? We're gonna do exactly what Smoke a Lot do. We're gonna open up like what? Like I was Barbara Wolf. Ridiculous. It's only about a lawyer. Spirituality. If you get it, damn, it's bad. I can get on the back of the love life. I love life, man. Get right with you. I mean, talk about a guy with an option. Anyways, we're gonna go over here to this, because guess what? We got a new intro for y'all. It's the same intro, but it's new. For those who know, you know. Let's get into it, though. Get into this video. This the nice guy was blowing up. From all over the place. Come on in, Mike. Come on, Mike. He said, come on, Mike. Come on in here, Mike. Come on in here, Mike. Welcome to the Trap House. Y'all know how we do TDWC, TWP Popcorn.
America has always been a country where we see innovations coming out of garages.
Ask the right question. As it stands tonight, certain innovators will argue they're being undercut by a federal law putting a lid on them distilling spirits in their own homes. But a legal case on the docket hits close to home in Kentucky, where millions of barrels of bourbon already age in rick houses every year. Wave News reporter Meredith Lee explains how some enthusiasts are fighting for their freedom to make their own drink.
Yeah, one man's fight to make a small batch of spirits in his garage just for himself is now before a federal appeals court, and the outcome could change what Washington is allowed to control in your home. You don't have to go far in Louisville before you find a bourbon distillery or two. But for those inspired to try their hand at home,
If you distill even an ounce of whiskey or distilled spirit at home, it's actually a federal felony.
that rule doesn't apply to other home hobbies, even small batch wine or beer. But that could change depending on the outcome of a federal case now before the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, one that could decide how far Washington's reach goes into your home.
Whether you're baking bread or have a garden or repairing your car, there's almost nothing that would be beyond the regulatory scope of Congress. That just can't be correct under the Constitution.
Robert Alt is president of the Buckeye Institute and lead counsel in Ream versus U.S. Department of Treasury. His client, John Ream, an aerospace engineer from Ohio, wants the legal right to distill spirits at home for personal use. The case has the power to overturn a 1942 Supreme Court ruling, Wickard v. Filburn, which gave Congress broad authority to regulate even personal, non-commercial activity.
So many ideas come out of people tinkering in their garages. Why should we be stifling that?
The Bluegrass Institute brought this conversation to Louisville, where a favorable ruling could open the door to home distilling licenses and new innovation in
It was that line right there that I liked when I saw this video earlier, because, I normally don't like alcoholic promotions, but you know how we do. We support what he just said. He said, hold on. If motherfuckers can't come up with shit in the garage at home on their time off, what are we going to have? Nothing, because then you're going to take away people's ability to be creative. Oh, man, that guy was smart. Somebody get him a raise. Just don't make him president because, he's talking about alcohol, and, we're going to get him some, infused beverages.
Kentucky's signature spirit.
Kentucky is the best place in the world to produce bourbon, and I would like to see that market innovate. I would like to see it grow.
Oral arguments were heard in December. A decision could come any time, and the stakes here go well beyond what's in the glass.
In a place like Kentucky, I'm sure you all agree, bourbon is freedom.
The Sixth Circuit's decision could also be appealed to the United States Supreme Court. The Bluegrass Institute says it's watching this case closely for what it could mean for Kentucky's economy and individual liberty. Meredith Lee, Wave News.
What up, Six Bows? Back. Six Bows is back. Let me say it right. You got to say it all together like a Tribe Called Quest. Good to see you. Six Bows is back.
Afroman is in an absolutely hilarious case with the Adams County Sheriff's Department in what is a battle between First Amendment protections and what is defamatory. We're going to get that today on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Of course, I am Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is a Fast Facts video, the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. So for those of you that may not know, the defendant in this case is, of course, one Afroman, Joseph Edgar Foreman, of the famous hit back in the day of Because I Got High. Well, in this case, he is now getting in it with the Adams County Sheriff over a botched raid on his house. And to introduce them, they are the plaintiffs here in the parody depiction as Afroman shows you in his video, which we're going to watch a little bit of later in this segment. And these sheriffs are mad based on these depictions that he has made of them. Some of them, such as Officer Poundcake over here, another one's a hunchback. They've got all sorts of different depictions, some of them a little bit worse than others. And that's why they ended up in court with him today.
Jealous,
now,
man. Shout out to
Afroman has a house
in
Adams County, and this house was raided based on a tip of narcotics and kidnapping. They had some informant that said, hey, There's narcotics, there's kidnapping victims, and the kidnapping was based on a quote-unquote dungeon basement that he had, allegedly. And so they went in and got this warrant from a judge and went into his place while he was not there. He was in Chicago at the time. Now his wife was present, and he did have security cameras. So there's footage from those security cameras, which he uses later in parody videos. And that's really the subject of this today. But when they went in there during that search, not only did they find nothing, there were no kidnapping victims, there was no narcotics, there was no, tons and tons of drugs, of anything, marijuana, cocaine, whatever. None of that stuff. But they smashed up his front door, his front gate. They searched his entire house. They took cash, and there's a big dispute about the amount of cash they took, because according to Afroman, $400 is missing. They said they gave him back. It was about $5,000, $5,400 according to Afroman, $5,000 according to them. According to their internal investigation, they did not misplace any cash. But once again, this is a situation, if you know the police situation with cash is very easily palmed or easily taken. And oftentimes there are huge corruption issues when it comes to cash. This can come up in, for example, drug cases where people are dealing with a lot of cash and just the cash disappears, or the cash goes to fund the county, etc., or just slides off. But that cash is a big subject of debate here, because Afroman in his position thinks they stole that money. So there was no actual findings at all. It was totally bunk. So Afroman, being incensed about this, being mad about this, took the surveillance footage of the raid and made parody videos mocking the police. Now, these parody videos, the officers did not like them at all. So if you go to his channel, you can see these over here, and he has almost 1 million subscribers here, probably getting a lot more recently. But all of these videos here, a lot of them go through individual officers, like Officer Randy Walters, Brian Newland, Sean, Lisa, all through this. Officer Pound Cake, because the guy looked at he was kind of a little bit more of a husky individual, and he was looking at that cake like he was real hungry. He goes through a lot of these different videos and mocks them individually. But what we're going to review today is one video where he reviews the raid kind of footage as a whole, and it goes over several of the officers, and it kind of explains, when you see this video in the portion I'm going to show you, why they are suing. So we're going to go break that down step by step here right now. So here is the video. It's titled "The Batter Ram Hymn of the Police Whistleblower" by Afroman, and of course you can check this out on his channel. Like you see, I'll put that link in the description. But we're going to go and break this down, and I'll show you the points at which I think the defamation is there and the clear parody. Of course, I think the depictions here, probably parody. The only ones that might be a little bit more troublesome are when you see, hey, there's a prison uniform. So, okay, is this guy in a prison? And this individual over here, I think we're pretty clear about what this accusation is right here, which if you make that sort of accusation, you better be pretty on point. Let's continue. Very catchy. And a point matter, I do like his suit. Mine eyes seen the corruption of the ad. So starting off here, showing them what he alleges as stealing cash. So one of the big things is calling them thieves. Calling someone a thief is potentially defamatory. Now, under his opinion, that cash was counted wrong. Their internal investigation may have said that was clear, but that's a big subject for debate and one of the subjects of the case. Some county cops stealing money, stealing cake. When they make their traffic stops, first they screw. I don't know whether the officer actually took the cake, but he looked like he wanted to take the cake. And they did at one point unplug the security cameras, so it's very possible he did take a slice of the delicious lemon pound cake at subject here. Afroman is gonna screw ya. My proof's on the internet. He did let all the footage out on the internet. So all that's out there, and all of that is permissible because that's his home surveillance footage. Yep. Police have no reasonable expectation of privacy in that footage whatsoever.
Don't break in my house.
Seen informants get busted with felonies. So he better be pretty sure about that. But seeing that he pulled this up right here and showing her booking, it assumes he's telling the truth about that. So if that's true, if this informant actually was booked for a felony, that's not defamation, right? That's straight up just the truth. Tell the cops I'm a kidnapper and I sell a lot of keys. Raid my house and then get pissed. Cause the dungeon don't exist. My proof's on the internet. Of course, he's referencing the basement dungeon where he allegedly had kidnapping victims, which didn't exist.
My gate don't operate, and my door is on the floor.
So there you go. So that's legitimate. That's a very legitimate grievance. If they knocked down his door, they battering rammed his door, they broke his gate. That's a legitimate grievance. He's owed compensation for that by the police.
My camera's disconnected. Lisa Phillips is
Okay, so now let's put it here. That one of the female officers is suing for her depiction, the sexual depiction of her and that depiction. So that one is one that's more amorphous. That's one that, especially if you look at it in the context of rap music, in the context of artistic speech, that's something very, very common. So it's dicey. That's a very dicey claim, but that's one thing the female officer is suing for.
They vandalized my property. My money came up short.
Legitimate from his perspective, that's vandalization of property. That's a legitimate claim, right? So calling them, saying they vandalized, that's a crime, right? Vandalization. But that's also his perspective, looking at what they did to his property. So that one, I think that's going to fly because you've got that right there. You've got, hey, this door went down, the gate's broken. There you go. He thinks the money's up short, right? Their internal investigation doesn't. He does. That's a matter of debate.
They're the predators and the victims, and they're suing me in court.
Close word there, very close with defamation. You got to be careful with predator because that can be very dicey. But probably, you can say he meant that in the context of they're preying on people.
Brian Newland is a flag.
Now we're getting into more spicier accusations, right? And this guy is in the current court case, which is going on right now, is one of the ones that testified as to defamation.
William is a pet.
There's the bomb. There's the bomb. So you show the guy in the jump. You show the guy in the prison orange. So what I would assume is you've got some information on this. But that is one that you drop, the hard P. You drop that accusation, you better be able to back that up, right? Or have some reasonable basis for backing that up. But I would assume, based on showing that jumpsuit and in other videos, which I've watched, he's got people testifying as to these people's character, etc. So based on those things combined, but that's one we hear on the internet a whole lot. We hear it being dropped, and that is per se defamatory. But if you've got truthful statement, if you've got truth behind that, and you're able to back that up, then it might fly, right? But that's one of the reasons that he's probably in court as we speak.
If I'm telling folks the truth, how come I have to go to trial? Newland's and kids, that's true. Now
that once again, that's pretty defamatory if it's not true. But he's saying, hey, it's true, the proof is out there. So the assumption is he's got something to back that up, and he's going to show that in court. So you guys now see the spiciest pieces of the accusations. You've got accusations of theft. You've got accusations of deviant behavior, criminal records. So that's why this thing is proceeding. So the case law is pretty clear, once again, that officers have no expectation of privacy when they're conducting raids. That is not something that they can expect to remain private. And the surveillance footage can be freely used. So
just hope I ain't trying to get in nowhere, because that's when I'm most creative. Oh, I gotta get in.
Right up publicity.
I gotta get in.
Infliction of emotional distress. Now, as public officials, they have a duty to prove malice. So just like public figures, like internet figures or celebrities or people on the news, they're treated with the same higher standard of having to prove actual malice, which is very, very difficult. Now, because of that, and because of the case law, the judge dismissed outright the right of publicity and commercial use claims. So about half the claims were kind of knocked out, but they kept the defamation, false light, and some of the invasion of privacy
so
claims and allowed those
defamation,
to proceed to trial. This is one where, once again, it's civil court.
Be glad I won my lawsuit,
so the
right?
standard is a bit lower. I think if you thought about this in a criminal sense with like beyond a reasonable doubt, then there'd be no chance at all, right? But on some of them where you have to kind of go into more of the facts, you have to go into more of the details. Okay, well, what information did you have to lead you to believe that this was true? You can see how this may have ended up in court. And the trial's going on right now in Adams County. So we're going to be following that as it develops. And it's an interesting balance of First Amendment right to criticize law enforcement against the officer's privacy and reputational interests. So from the officer's argument, the specific terms terms are arguably defamatory from their perspective. So they argue the words like thief, the hard P, we all know that one is the defamation per se. So that's one. Anywhere you drop that, you better be very, very sure before you drop that. Then calling someone a white supremacist. Now, that one is more difficult to prove, and that's one that most case law is against. But the officers are saying that's a problem for them. I don't think they're going to get anywhere on that one. Criminals camouflaged by law enforcement. Now, that one, calling them criminals, potentially it's up in the air. Now, some of them might be criminals, right? And some of them might have a previous criminal record, which would
it depends on
a truthful statement.
Who's making the music, Six Bows, because, you know, some of these people just be running propaganda, because, you know, that's one of the things that they attack us with is the music. The bad thing about words is spelling, as they call it. And, you know, the only way you can cast a good spell is to get everybody to believe in it. And that's what music does. It gets you to believe in something. Not saying that music can't be good, but when you hear a lot of the music today, it's trash. I mean, it's literally hot garbage. But hell, I mean, we know Afroman's music was always classic, though. I mean, hell, he's got a couple songs that, you know, if you don't know who Afroman is, I definitely suggest you check it out, because, hell, this guy was a known artist, and that's why he's like, nah, I might not be, you know, I might not be Birdman, but, you know, I'm balling. You know, got a little money house nice set up. Don't be trying to fuck with me.
They also said offensive comments about a female deputy's gender, sexual orientation, voice, and appearance are alleged. But once again, that's an area where you don't see a lot of claims. And if you put it in context, it's going to be very difficult. And so they're arguing actual malice on all of these things. However, Afroman comes with a very strong defense. First Amendment, first and foremost, artistic and political speech. This is his artistic creation. And also opinion and hyperbole, particularly in the context of rap. And you have to go in the background of rap. He's a rapper. Now, you may argue that song you just heard was not rap. Okay, whatever. We're not getting into whether or not that's rap or whether that's just a parody song, whatever it is. But in the context of general music, people say a lot of hyperbolic things about other people. If you listen to rap music all the time, you know that, let's see, the morality of people's sexual behavior and their partner's sexual behavior is definitely something that comes up, particularly in rap music, particularly in America. So that is something that I think is a super strong defense. Also saying no actual malice because, number one, he's looking
you know,
at
you believe in Negro
and
spirituals?
saying this is what they did, or this is my
sit here
perception
and talk
of
shit
what
in the
they
fields.
did.
That's what
And
we
it's a
did. We started
reasonable
singing. Then boss
perception.
like, what is
Hey,
they
if his
jiving
pound cake
about?
is missing,
Yeah, we
you
done
call
plotted
Officer
on taking
Pound
y'all
Cake.
out,
Pound
and that's
cake's
why y'all
missing,
didn't
right?
make it
Or the
tomorrow.
cash is missing. Hey, it's cash. You stole it, therefore you are a thief, right? That's a
Y'all thought
reasonable
we was
interpretation
singing
of that.
and just
The
having a good old
substantial
time
truth
in the
and
field working,
newsworthiness
right?
of this, because most of it is true, even if
Nah, we
there
was
may
telling
be
y'all what
details of
Harriet
it that are
said.
not exactly true. And then saying there's no real harm to them, meaning the only harm is from the raid footage getting out of what actually happened, and that doesn't look good for the officers. So saying the officers don't look good because they went in on a bunk search and they just behaved in an inappropriate way. And that's the real harm to them, is their government misbehavior. It's not actually the parody video, which is just basing it on that in a mocking way. So my judgment here is that the Afroman case is hilarious, but also important for the line when criticizing police. And it's a very, very important case because we want to be able to criticize our government in all aspects when it goes wrong. Criticism like this, parody videos, is a non-violent way to criticize, which we want to promote in America. We want to promote in free societies, non-violent ways to criticize the government, to publicly shame them. And really the only criminal claims that Afroman made against police, the accusations that are really criminal, like, for example, dropping that hard P, those are probably the ones and the reasons why he's in court. If he didn't say those specific things that were a little bit more on the criminal side, he probably wouldn't be in court at all, because it would be just something that was dismissed at a prior period in this trial. However, I do strongly believe that bad actors should be publicly humiliated, and parody is an amazing way to do that when they cross the line, particularly for law enforcement. So I'm going to be watching this case and how it develops, and I will let you guys know as it plays out. Let me know what you guys think about the Afroman case and parody in general. And do not forget, we also have a giveaway for the Cabbage plushie. So if you want to get one of those, you can check out the description below, and that will be pinned in there. Until next time, see ya.
Everybody in New York was calling to get down with Mr. Nice Guy. We met all kinds of customers, like this guy here. He's what we call an enhancement smoker, because he thinks that marijuana makes every activity much better.
Casa su casa. Observe. You're Scarface, right? Yeah. I love Al Pacino, man. Did you ever see Son of a Woman?
Yup.
Okay, the boy hitting back.
You ever seen Son of a Woman on weed? That's the way to see it, man. It's just wow.
$60, yo.
Sue, how you doing? Good to see you. Hopefully it's another day in paradise. Y'all need to go check out the Bud Files. Great supporters on YouTube and great content. Type of informative channel you might need in your life. Go ahead and binge you a playlist or three. You know, a playlist, not a video, a playlist or three.
Sitting in the bushes, man. Does he have a gun?
I don't know. What?
I don't know. What? Red team go. Red team go. It's just a weird
mess,
shit, man.
Man, fucking crazy, yo.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks, man. Hey, yo, wait. Dude,
That's the one thing I did like about having to do deals back in the day. You meet some interesting fucking people.
Man.
Interesting people.
Flowers about to be banned. Hemp, cannabis, THCA, it really doesn't matter. And this comes off the heels of a massive THC hemp showdown over in Texas just a few months back. But what's really sad is that when you have a minority of lawmakers who do not understand how the plant works and the true benefits that can be had, but they're making rules for the majority, those are the types of draconian laws that we end up with.
Well, a big change is coming for Texas hemp stores at the end of this month. New state rules taking effect March 31st will ban the sale of smokable hemp products, including popular items like THCA flower. Edible hemp products will still be allowed, but they'll face stricter testing and packaging requirements. The rules also dramatically raise licensing fees for businesses up to $5,000 a year for retailers.
So that deadline is fast approaching, and in just a couple weeks' time, all smokable cannabis will be banned over in Texas. Now, some of you guys may recall that this ban was first proposed a few months back, and it was initially supposed to come into force on January the 25th. But there was a little bit of a delay, and there was a public comment period where Texans were able to make their feelings known on this very issue.
Texas could ban all smokable forms of cannabis by the end of the month. The state's health department is out with proposed regulations for the hemp industry in Texas that would dramatically increase fees on businesses like this one, Austinite Cannabis Co. Their registration fee would increase from $150 a year to $20,000 a year. And that's why the owner, Estela Castro, says it could put her out of business.
It would be just a complete elimination of my business.
She was among dozens of business owners and consumers who told state health commissioners to reconsider the regulations.
You're not just regulating hemp, you're pricing Texans out of business.
Reconsider the fees, make them feasible and attainable for small business like myself.
But some Texans say the rules don't go far enough. Christine Scruggs said her son developed psychosis after cannabis use and needed medical treatment to recover.
Thank you for increasing license fees. The more difficult it is for the industry to addict users, the better.
Some of these regulations actually have broad support, like a requirement for child-resistant packaging.
So this is a massive blow to the Texas industry, Texas residents, consumers, and patients, because according to this, Texas ban on selling smokable cannabis in fact takes effect on March the 31st. That's literally 2 weeks away. So there are a few things that you may have heard from that clip, and we're going to break it down. But perhaps the most important, biggest, most devastating thing for patients, consumers, and Texans is that there's going to be a ban on selling all smokable cannabis products, which takes effect on March the 31st, literally a couple weeks away. And according to this article, all smokable cannabis products must be removed from Texas stores by the end of the month, according to the new rules adopted by the state's health department. These new regulations effectively ban the sale of all smokable hemp and extracts by changing how the DSHS measures delta-9 THC, which is the primary psychoactive ingredient in cannabis. Now, the issue here is that the DSHS, the Department of State and Health Services, their regulation includes a new total THC rule, which counts a cannabis compound known as THCA in the delta-9 calculation. And during the public comment period, hundreds of people told the DSHS that they oppose counting THCA as delta-9. THCA is not explicitly banned by state or federal law. Now, this may be confusing for some folks
who don't understand the distinction between Delta-8, Delta-9, and THCA. But now a lot of folks have become wiser to this whole thing, and even mainstream media is advising lawmakers as to how the loophole is being exploited. Check it out.
Now, a quick refresher, because we know it can get confusing for some when we talk about hemp and THC and cannabis. So, according to the National Institutes of Health, hemp is a cannabis plant that contains no more than 0.3% of Delta-9 THC. THC being short for tetrahydrocannabinol, the compound that gets a person high. But hemp also has tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, or THCA. THCA does not get a person high unless it's activated by heat. The heat alters its chemical composition and the THCA becomes THC. A quick search online shows some consumable hemp products on the market boast THCA concentrations of 15 to 30%, a lot more than the 0.3%.
So with all of these arbitrary numbers and percentages that are literally implemented by lawmakers and rulemakers who have no understanding about how the plant functions, operates, or no experience with personally using it themselves, these are the types of situations that we end up in, where they pretty much try to lump everything together and everything ends up being banned. And what's even crazier is that all of this is leading to lawmakers targeting specific cannabis compounds, including the Delta compound, but also writing letters to state departments calling for a ban of these products.
What's more, this afternoon, Texas State Senator Charles Perry sent a letter to 2 state agencies calling on them to close loopholes in the state's hemp laws. He wants the state departments of Agriculture and Health Services to update their hemp laws in order to match federal regulations. Senator Perry says federal law requires testing hemp for total THC, but Texas law is unclear, and some stores are selling marijuana disguised as legal hemp. He says Texas has a duty to make hemp products only contain what's legally defined as hemp.
So Texas is literally tweaking right now. They're going all out when it comes to regulation. And it's not just any form of regulation. It's regulation that's so tight, designed to squeeze the profits out of these small businesses, but also ban so many products that it's pretty much going to become non-existent. The only things that folks will still be able to purchase are really weak gummies. Now, with this new determination as to how the THC concentrations are to be calculated, we can see tons of products being wiped off of store shelves. And this will affect tons of small businesses, but also the consumers that use these products for medical purposes. And I do want to shed some light on the massive 13% increase, the massive 13,000% increase on some of these licensing fees that businesses will face that will obviously affect and trickle down to the consumer. But before we do, just a quick reminder, if you're getting value from this video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support us further, join the ICANN VIP Bean Club or cop some merch from our merch store. We got that new American-grown hoodie, The Good Herb. Use that code ICANNTHC and grab it now. And if you happen to be a home gardener, try the ICANN Organics. Use the code LEGAL. It works on the bundle and the seeds.
I do think there's going to be a huge impact to businesses because not only are you having increased fees to operate, but there's a multitude of other things.
That includes new age restrictions, revised testing standards, and changes to packaging, labeling, and record keeping. Retailers say another major shift involves how THC levels will be measured for compliance. THC is the compound in hemp that can get you high.
This rule, which is a small language change to convert THCA into total THC, has huge impacts.
Happy Cactus owner Todd Harris says the change essentially bans cannabis flower, which makes up about 70% of their sales. Combined with the now 400% fee increase, Harris says staying open may not be possible.
We have 2 locations. If we don't get these rules changed and we lose flower and we have those fees, I can't see us keeping both locations at least. Most likely we would go out of business as well.
Retailers worry this could also lead consumers into an illicit market, but they hope they can keep finding their way in a fast-changing industry.
So this is really sad for a lot of those businesses that are just trying to survive. The truth is, a lot of them do in fact enforce age verifications and don't sell to kids. And it's also going to now impact a lot of those folks who are using these products for medical purposes. Consumers, patients, folks who are not able to access these products otherwise. And what's even sadder is that there's a small population of the public that may not necessarily agree with the Good Herb. And that population is really pushing against the majority, especially when it comes to forcing some of these bans. And that's exactly what this lady who moved from Colorado to Texas.
I am Aubrey Adams, the director of Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas. I come from Pueblo, Colorado, which is the forefront of the marijuana expansion movement. I originally brought my son to Texas to help him recover from his addiction to THC and experiencing symptoms of psychosis and severe GI issues. After achieving 3 years of sobriety, he unfortunately encountered similar problems again due to the Texas products of THC here. Let me be clear.
They're forming groups that are actually working against legalization. Check it out.
It will only allow 0.4 milligrams per container. It's something Aubrey Adams is celebrating. You said that you guys have been working on trying to see this day come for quite some time.
On one hand, it was surprising to me to see them get that done so fast. Hemp was legalized to make textiles and ropes and CBD creams and stuff like that.
Adams is the director of Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas, the group speaking in favor of Texas banning THC-containing products earlier this year.
This isn't about medical marijuana or any medical benefits. There's also already products approved through the FDA that people can have access to.
Now, some of you guys may not like me saying this, but she's a Karen, and she literally said that I don't care about you guys and if you guys are using this for medical purposes because the FDA has approved a very limited number of products that you could use, and you should use those instead. But what about those folks who do not want to use Big Pharma's products, don't want to get addicted to opioids and opiates, don't want to use prescription drugs? What about those people? They prefer a natural medicine. Why are you blocking them and preventing them from being able to access it?
We first shared their story 11 years ago. The North Texas family that moved to Colorado for medical marijuana treatments. Alexis was 9 years old then, had daily seizures. She's grown up a bit since.
As of now, I haven't had a seizure for over a decade. It has definitely worked out for me, and I'm very grateful.
And today she is encouraged. After President Trump signed an executive order reclassifying marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug to Schedule 3, joining prescription painkillers. It's important to note, reclassifying doesn't decriminalize it in states where it's already illegal.
Schedule 3 is going to allow research to be done.
The biggest benefit could be perception. Alexis says drug tests are the biggest barrier to the public.
Opens that door to make it a lot easier for people to hold jobs that use treatments like I do.
Texas Original and advocacy group writes, while immediate impacts in Texas are limited by state law, this shift supports patients and has the potential to reduce operational barriers for dispensaries, enable health insurance reimbursement, improve banking and financial services, and increase awareness of the Texas Compassionate Use Program across the state.
Oh, I don't like this.
Alexis takes CBD and THC oil 3 times daily. She says it's saved her life and would tell her 9-year-old self to keep advocating.
It is very crazy to see how I was then.
She's now studying nursing in Colorado, turning her experience into care. In North Texas, I'm Jobin Paniker.
Because like I always say, no matter how you split this, it's not about Republicans versus Democrats. This is a bipartisan issue because the cannabis consumer community is just as bipartisan as the general population. There are tons of Republicans who smoke weed, and there are tons of Democrats who smoke weed. And an overwhelming majority of Americans are in favor of legalization. But instead of giving the people what they want, they're trying everything to literally destroy this entire industry. From banning all the smokable products to also implementing massive fees to the tune of 13,000% licensing increases. Have a look.
Small mom-and-pop hemp shops like the neighborhood stores many Texans rely on could be forced to close if a new state proposal moves forward unchanged. This is Taylor Kamnitz with MySA, and here's what you need to know. Texas DSHS is taking public comment until January 25th on a plan that would raise hemp licensing fees from $150,000 to $20,000 a year, a roughly 13,000% increase. For comparison, the most expensive liquor license in Texas costs about $10,000 for a consumer delivery permit, and that's still half the proposed hemp retail fee. Heather Fazio of the Texas Cannabis Policy Center says many small businesses simply cannot absorb this level of cost and will be forced to shut down rather than renew.
So like I said in past videos, this is 100% designed to be a kill shot to the entire hemp industry, making it so that tons of businesses will be forced to shut down. And I mean, that's exactly what some of these prohibitionist lawmakers want. They want less of these products available to the public. But enough about what I think. Let's see what the local hemp businesses in Texas themselves have to say about this whole thing. Have a look.
For a business built on highs, lately it's been up and down.
Your product's banned.
then it's not banned, and then they're trying to ban it again. So it's just like up and down for us.
Now, Eddie Velez finds himself in limbo once again. Texas has proposed new rules that raise licensing fees for hemp and THC businesses like his.
From $150 to $20,000 on an annual basis that we will have to pay.
Devastating for his shop.
That essentially shuts us down.
And he says a rule changing how THC content is measured will wipe out most of the products his customers enjoy.
If you try to get to compliancy, you reduce your potency to pretty much nothing. And when you're growing the plant, it makes it damn near impossible.
There are supporters of the new rules, like the group Texans for Safe and Drug-Free Youth, which says, quote, it's fair and appropriate for the people who profit from selling $1 billion in intoxicating products to create fees that help cover the costs associated with the regulation and societal burden of the product. But most of the speakers at a hearing in Austin last month were against the proposal.
I'm optimistic that the state's hearing our comments.
Even though Velez sells relaxation, he's having a tough time finding it.
I'm not going to lie, it's stressful and creates an anxiety because as a business owner, we really don't have clarity on our future.
State regulators say they'll make a decision by March 30th.
And that decision seems to be everything is going to be banned. All smokable flower, whether it's hemp, cannabis, or THCA. It's absolutely mind-blowing, and that's going to cause a lot of issues when it comes to the hemp industry over in Texas. Not just for local and small businesses, which will be forced to shut down, but the consumers and patients and Texas residents who are no longer going to be able to access tons of these products and have to alternatively turn toward the black market. Now, what's really crazy about this whole thing is that the Texas booming hemp industry is now in jeopardy, but also the Texas economy could be facing some really unintended consequences.
Bo Whitney with Whitney Economics explains what the decision means for Texas's economy.
53,000 jobs and roughly $2 billion in wages. And then there's additional lost revenues from a taxation perspective as well, from the sales tax.
Taylor's business will be hurt, but he says he's not just concerned about that.
I'm not going to lie and say there aren't bad actors. There are. There are tons of businesses that don't care, that are mislabeling, that aren't following regulations that were already put into place. But why should that damage us? I'm more scared about my customer, if we shut down in a year, going out to the street and taking something that could possibly kill them.
So let me know what you guys think about all that. Everything that we discussed in today's video, all the crazy things that are happening over in Texas. Drop your thoughts and concerns in the comment section down below and let me know where you stand on everything because this is absolutely mind-blowing. Now coming up in our next video, even though Texas seems to be moving backwards, there are tons of states which are moving forwards and medical herb is spreading. Tons of folks are hopping on board with medical legalization. So if you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's coming up right now.
Hey everybody, welcome into our latest TDR Weekly Recap powered by Free Nicotine Pouches. As usual, I am your host, Shad Dales. Hope everybody had a great week because it was another busy week across the cannabis industry with developments coming from the courts. We also saw stuff from the state legislatures and company earnings reports that are also shaping the direction of the sector here in 2026. So some of the highlights this week included a growing legal battle in the U.S. court system that could eventually challenge the federal Schedule I classification of cannabis and even Section 280E taxes. Also, Colorado lawmakers are advancing Ryan's Law, which would allow terminally ill patients to use medical cannabis inside hospitals. Elsewhere, Tennessee lawmakers are reopening the debate around medical marijuana following President Trump's executive order to reschedule cannabis. And on the corporate side, it was a big week of earnings once again that included Verano, MariMed, Village Farms, and SNDL, showing how operators are really navigating the challenging markets right now as we prepare for potentially some federal reform, aka rescheduling. So with that, let's get into our first weekly recap. But first, today's episode is powered by Free Nicotine Pouches. Look, if you're looking for a modern nicotine alternative that's tobacco-free and smoke-free, then Free Pouch delivers a clean and discreet experience with bold flavors and smooth strengths designed to fit seamlessly into your lifestyle. Anywhere from 3 milligrams up to 15 milligrams. So whether you're working, traveling, or just want to stay focused, or something simple without the smoke or mess, Free gives you a convenient option wherever you are. If you want to try them out, head on over right now to freepouch.com. And also, if you want to save $20 in your first purchase, enter our promo code TDR20 at checkout and save now. Free nicotine pouches, own your edge. All right, let's get into this week's TDR weekly recap. We begin with the new path to cannabis reform, and we focus on the courts. While much of the industry continues to focus on the administrative process surrounding cannabis rescheduling right now, another path towards reform is quietly gaining momentum, and that path runs through the U.S. judiciary. So across the country, several court cases are starting to challenge the legal foundations behind cannabis's Schedule 1 classification and its tax consequences under Section 280E. This is interesting. And right now, the implications, as we know, they could be big. So one of the most closely watched cases recently they argued before the U.S. Supreme Court is, as we know, U.S. versus Hamani. The case challenges the federal prohibition that prevents cannabis users from owning firearms under the Second Amendment. So during arguments, several justices, including Amy Coney Barnett and Neil Gorsuch, they questioned whether simply using cannabis should automatically classify someone as dangerous under federal law. Well, it's about time. Also, Justice Gorsuch even pointed out the contradiction. The federal government is actively considering moving cannabis to Schedule 3, yet current law still treats cannabis users as if they are consuming a substance equivalent to heroin. Well, finally, somebody's listening here. And also on top of that, lower courts have actually begun pushing against blanket prohibitions. Recent rulings across multiple federal circuits have suggested that individualized assessments are required rather than broad bans tied simply to cannabis use. Some courts have even thrown out firearm-related charges that are tied to cannabis possession, and that makes sense to me. So why does this matter? Because those rulings slowly chip away at the logic behind Schedule 1 classification itself, which brings us to the 280E tax question, because at the same time, another major legal challenge could reshape the industry's financial landscape, and that is, without a doubt, Section 280E, the federal tax code that prevents companies selling Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 substances from deducting normal business expenses. So as we know, that means legal cannabis operators often face effective tax rates above, get this, 70%, while industries like alcohol and tobacco deduct standard expenses like advertising, rent, and payroll. Been going on for years. So now several legal challenges argue that this treatment violates equal protection under the Constitution. So if the Supreme Court were to rule against 280E even narrowly, it could have effectively delivered Schedule 3 tax treatment for the industry, guess what? Overnight. And unlike executive actions or rulemaking, a Supreme Court decision would be far harder for the future administrations to undo. So think about that, because for an industry that has spent, let's face it, years waiting on regulators, the courts could end up playing a surprisingly central role in the next phase of cannabis reform. Who would have thought, right? Meanwhile, at the state level, Colorado lawmakers, they took a step forward on compassionate care for terminally ill patients. So here is what the latest information is. The Colorado House, they passed Ryan's Law. It's legislation that would allow terminally ill medical cannabis patients to use their medicine inside hospitals and health care facilities. The cannabis sentiment's getting louder across the country, everyone, don't you think? So the bill passed with strong bipartisan support and now heads to Governor Jared Polis, who is widely expected to sign it. However, the final version of the bill allows hospitals to opt in rather than requiring participation. So that means some facilities could still choose not to allow cannabis use. So keep that in mind. Meanwhile, supporters, they say it's still meaningful progress because it'll allow more patients access to cannabis during end-of-life care, even if it falls short of the stronger protections advocates originally wanted. Progress being made here, everyone. Meanwhile, federal developments are also influencing cannabis policy debates in the states that have historically resisted legalization. So what do I mean by that? Well, in Tennessee, lawmakers are once again debating the possibility of legalizing medical marijuana. Why is that? Well, the shift comes after President Donald Trump's executive order last last year, which was initiating cannabis rescheduling. Some Republican lawmakers who previously opposed medical cannabis are now saying federal action could address their concerns around safety and also regulation. See what a little bit of direction from Washington brings. So while Tennessee is still far from legalization today, the conversation shows how federal policy again changes and has a ripple effect on state politics. Seeing that in PA as well, right? All right, let's now turn to the business side here this week. And first up is Verano Holdings, who reported its latest results for Q4 full year 2025. So the company, they reported $821.5 billion in revenue for the year, with adjusted EBITDA reaching $229.2 million. More importantly, Verano ended the year with $83 million in cash, with streamlined operations and exposure in several key growth markets that include none other than Florida, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. The company also secured a conditional vertical license in Texas, positioning it well if that state indeed expands its medical program, which all signs point in that direction. Another operator is quietly executing as well this week, and that is MariMed. The company reported $159.8 million in revenue for 2025 and achieved positive adjusted EBITDA for the 6th consecutive year. So well done. Wholesale distribution, which is their core, it expanded to 85% of dispensaries in its core markets, while brands like Betty's Eddie's Edibles continue ranking among the top selling products in several states. Man, do people love that product. You want to talk about brands? Look at that brand. Betty's Eddie's. Two other companies also posted notable results this week. First up, Village Farms International. They reported record profitability and strong export growth, particularly in Europe. Meanwhile, SNDL, they delivered record revenue of $946 billion, positive free cash flow, and ended the year with more than, get this, $250 million in cash. And guess what? No debt. So for an industry that spent years focused on survival, results like these are suggesting some operators are finally reaching financial stability. That's where we're at, everybody. Less companies around in the space, but for those that are still around, they're only going to get bigger and stronger. VFF, SNDL are two of them. And look, if you want to read more about some of these numbers that they reported this week into detail, make sure to subscribe to our baked-in newsletter by scanning on this QR code right here, where we break down this week's earnings numbers and give our big takeaways from each company's latest reports that we just discussed. So make sure to get our full analysis again by scanning this QR code. And finally, to wrap things up this week, an interesting scientific development. Researchers at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, they just published findings suggesting that two cannabis compounds that include CBD and CBG may help treat metabolic dysfunction associated with liver disease, which is the most common chronic liver disorder globally right now. In case you didn't know, the study found that these cannabinoids reduce liver fat accumulation and improved metabolic health in experimental models. Now, I will say the research is still early and clinical trials are needed, but it's yet another example of how the scientific understanding of cannabis, it continues to, guess what, everybody, evolve. It always seems positive. So looking at this week, whether it was core challenges, state policy shifts, or stronger corporate balance sheets, the cannabis industry continues to move forward, even while federal reform slowly works its way through the system. And when I say slowly, it means slowly. Will we get an announcement from the Attorney General Pam Bondi? Hopefully that is the case. So that's it for our latest TDR Weekly Recap, powered by Free Nicotine Pouches. Leave your comments below. What is grabbing your attention in the space right now, and really, what was the highlight for you this week in the cannabis industry, or what concerns do you have? Assume obviously it's not getting another announcement. Well, if we do get an announcement, hopefully soon, that will change everything. But for now, it's the status quo. But for businesses, especially on the earnings report, they continue to scale and scale efficiently, which we saw amongst Verano, MariMed, VFF, and SNDL this week. As usual, stay connected, because if there's any late breaking news, you're going to want to stay connected. So smash on that bell for all notifications. And if you haven't done so, we want to get to 100,000 subscribers. So please subscribe to our channel. We would appreciate it here at TDR. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm off this week, but Anthony Farrell will be holding down the fort. He's got some great guests lined up, including CEO and chairman of Cureleaf, Boris Jordan, on Tuesday, as well Denton's cannabis lawyer, Eric Berlin, and as well Michael Bronstein from Attach to give latest news as to what's developing both on the cannabis and hemp side. We saw some interesting laws that came down from lawmakers in Texas that pretty much mirrors what Washington is doing on intoxicating hemp. Highly contested topics, so we'll break all that down in our latest live streams this week. So make sure you log on Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, everyone, that's it for now. Thanks again for watching. I'm your host, Shad Dale. It's TDR's Weekly Recap, powered by Free Nicotine Pouches. Take care.
Let's talk about maximizing growth during the vegetative stage, whether you're growing photoperiod or autoflower plants. There are a few key things that you can do to dramatically increase growth speed and vigor. Let's start with lighting. More specifically, light spectrum, because this is something that has changed over the years. Now, you warp back 15 years ago and you ask, what spectrum should you run in the veg stage? And a lot of people would say, a blue heavy spectrum. Back then, the majority of growers were using HID grow lights. They would use metal halide in veg, which were more blue heavy, and then switch to HBS in the flower stage for better flower development. These days, some growers flip-flop that, well, to a point. Especially with autoflower plants, a lot of people are running more heavy red in the spectrum for the veg stage in order to get a bigger plant. Now, I have seen some folks that run photoperiod that do the same technique. And then towards the end of flowering, like the final 2 to 3 weeks, they're switching back to that heavy blue spectrum in order to drive that secondary metabolite development. Now, somebody might mention that going to a red heavy spectrum in the veg stage is going to lead to longer internodes. And that's why they run a blue spectrum, which will lead to a more compact plant, tighter internodes. So feel free to experiment as you wish, but I thought that was pretty clever that people are now going more towards red in order to get a bigger plant in the veg stage. Let's talk about light cycle next. And I feel like the most common light cycle for the veg stage is 18-6. 18 hours with the grow lights on, 6 hours of complete darkness. Now, if you're looking to maximize growth in the veg stage, you might want to consider going to a 24-0 light cycle. 24 hours with lights on, 0 hours of darkness. A lot of growers run that still to this day, and they swear by faster growth. However, some people claim that there are downsides, that the plant needs rest and that the microbes in the medium need that rest. I think the jury's still out on which way is better, but you might want to experiment with running a 24-0 light cycle if you're looking to maximize veg growth. Moving on to PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. This is the energy that the plants use in order to grow. Now, the general range that you may often hear is for the veg stage between 400 and 600 ppfd. However, that's really going to depend on your light cycle, right? That's pretty good for an 18-6 light cycle, but if you're on a 24-0 light cycle, you may want to adjust that a little bit. And it really comes down to DLI, daily lighting integral. This is the amount of light that the plant can actually take and use per day. Generally speaking, I think a lot of people aim for around 40 DLI, but upwards of 60 DLI has been studied. Now, when you increase light levels like that, you also want to make sure your environment's dialed in. CO2 supplementation is often very helpful. We'll talk about CO2 here in a little bit. But yeah, for that 400 to 600 ppfd, that's for an 18-6 light cycle. You may want to adjust that to make sure you're not given too much light throughout the day if you're on a different light cycle than that. Next, let's get into environment. If you're looking to maximize growth in the veg stage, paying attention to the environment is super important. An easy way to think about this is the lower the temperature, the more the plant kind of slows down a little bit. And that includes the microbes in the medium as well. Me personally, if I'm looking for fast growth, I'm running about 80 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit in the veg stage. Now, some genetics can go higher than that. I've heard 85, 87, and I've experimented with those temperatures in the past. But I found that some genetics really can't handle that high of temps. So safe range for me, for most genetics, I feel like 95% of genetics are going to be able to grow really well in 80 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. When I get higher than that, some genetics I can start to see some signs of heat stress there. Hand in hand with that is relative humidity, which a lot of growers monitor. In the veg stage, it's very common to be over 60%, sometimes over 70% relative humidity. But talking about relative humidity, I guess these days we can kind of say is a little outdated. A lot of people are going after VPD now. So if you're one of those folks that track VPD, 0.8 to 1.2 kPa is what is said to be ideal in the veg stage. That VPD range is best for the stomata opening, which of course relates directly to the rate of photosynthesis. Air circulation. This is something that people often put to the back burner, but is really super important if you're looking to maximize growth. Or I should say, not stunt growth, because if you've got no air circulation, well then the leaf has the same batch of air kind of around, and there can be a lack of CO2, and the plants need CO2 in order to grow, right? I personally like to have at least one fan kind of more above, blowing air through the canopy as well as just above the canopy. Then place another fan down low, so it's getting the lower part of the plant and through any branches that are down there as well. Supplementing CO2 will absolutely help with growth in the veg stage, also the flower stage as well, but this video we're talking about the veg stage. The natural CO2 level outdoors is between 400 and 450 ppm. If you're indoors in a controlled environment, you can actually increase that amount and get faster growth. A rough range is anywhere between 800 and 1400 ppm. There's many studies out there on CO2. One study in particular that I know of from Utah State University. Shout out to Dr. Bruce Bugbee. I took his cannabis cultivation course, and in that course it mentions a study that happened where they had 1400 ppm and they saw a 30% increase in yield. Now, of course, they supplemented CO2 in the flower stage as well in order to get that result, but definitely wanted to mention CO2 as something that can really increase growth speed. Nutrition. Let's talk about that next, but before we get into that, just want to give a quick thanks to the sponsor, VivoSun, for sponsoring this video. The footage you're looking at right now was shot in a VivoSun 4x4 Pro Grow Tent. I got the Grow Tent kit, which comes with lights, fans, and a few other things. I've done a handful of grows in this grow space, and I've gotten some really good results. You can learn more about their Grow Tent kits down in the description section below. I'll leave a link, and you can use discount code MrGrow15. That discount code works on both Amazon as well as their website, vivosun.com. Okay, nutrition. Looking to maximize growth in the veg stage, feed the plants properly. But that can be easier said than done for sure. I want to break this down between organic and synthetic. We'll start with organic growing. We'll use Stash Base by Stash Nutrients as an example. Now, if you're reusing soil, amending with Stash Base before you plant is ideal. And that's typically every 3, I get away with 4 weeks when I'm doing some sort of top dressing onto the medium. That's going to ensure the plants have the nutrition they need in order to grow successfully, grow fast, grow vigorously. Another thing that you can add with that, which is a fantastic input, is worm castings. Worm castings not only provide the nutrition it needs, but also has that microbe life that really help breaking those amendments down, turning them into usable nutrients for the plants. You can also add in microbial inoculants. That'll help with the breakdown as well. I personally use a Stash Blend by Stash Nutrients, which technically isn't a microbial inoculant. It's a plant additive because it has a bunch of nutrition in there as well, but there's microbes in there that can certainly help with the breakdown. Those things combined in an organic or all-natural growing style can certainly help increase growth speed and vigor. If you're using synthetic bottled nutrients, know that not all bottled lineups are created equal. I always recommend people follow the feeding chart, but you may want to do a reduced dose depending on if those nutrients are made for cannabis or made for some other plant. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that folks make is they start using a nutrient line like Fox Farm, for example, and they feed it full strength and then they see toxicity issues. And Fox Farm isn't really formulated for cannabis. So a lot of people will start with a reduced dose. But if you want a little bit more clarity, EC or ppm is something that you can monitor. In the veg stage, I personally like to aim for anywhere between 400 and roughly 1,000 ppm on a 500 scale TDS tester. And I give that big range because there's early veg and then there's later veg, right? Depending on how big your plants grow will really depend on how much you're feeding. So yeah, there's a pretty big range there. Of course, you want to dial in pH as well. If you're in soil, rough range is 6.0 to 7.0 pH. Hydroponic or soilless medias, 5.5 to 6.5 pH. You can narrow that down a little bit more. I like to narrow it down to 5.8 to 6.2 pH. Being in the correct range is going to make sure that your plants have the access to uptake those nutrients. So super important if you're looking for fast growth. Moisture level in the medium, that's another thing that if you got that dialed in, you can get some really good growth. Now, back in the day, it was really a guessing game, and I think for a lot of people, it still is a guessing game to where you're lifting the pot or sticking your finger in the medium and seeing if it's dry or not. If you want to get a little bit more accurate and find out what the moisture level is and kind of base your waterings off of that, you can get a moisture meter. There are a handful of moisture meters out there, everything from Blue Mat to EcoWit. VivoSun has a moisture meter. Some are more accurate than others, but it's something you can look into if you are looking to dial in that moisture level, which is super important when it comes to your plant's growth rate. Too much moisture in the medium, your plants can get waterlogged and there could be a stunting growth. Not enough moisture in the medium, there could be a dry back, which has some benefits, but could also slow down growth as well. Plant training and pruning, if you're looking to maximize growth, well, don't do any of that, right? If you only do low stress training and not do any high stress training like topping or super cropping, anything that's doing physical damage to the plant, if If you're only doing low stress strain where you're bending things down, well, you're lessening your chances of the plant having any stunning growth. So if I was aiming for the plant to grow as fast as possible, I wouldn't top it all. I would just train the plants, do leaf tucking as well, and I would try to avoid pruning as much as possible. I would really only take off branches or leaves, defoliation, right before flipping to flower, if I can get away with that. But sometimes you have a bushy plant and you want to make sure airflow is getting through that plant so there's not hot spots, humid spots in the middle of the plant, which could certainly lead to problems like powdery mildew is a huge problem for a lot of people who live in high humid areas. You need to do some form of defoliation so you don't come across that. But if you can avoid it, well, then there's less chances of you slowing down growth. But again, sometimes you need to do it. What tips do you have for maximizing growth in the veg stage? Let me know down in the comment section below. On the outro card here, the next video you can click on is 5 tips for early flowering stage. So once you get through the veg stage, learn some tips for what you can do in the early flowering stage. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Hey everyone, welcome into another edition of TDR Cannabis in 5, powered by free nicotine pouches. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and today, well, the dive into a hotly contested topic in the news that broke out last week. More regulatory news out of the state of Texas that is about to reshape the hemp landscape in a very big way. So if you're in the hemp business, or if you're an investor, or if you've been following the rise of intoxicating hemp products across the U.S., this is a story you need to pay attention to, and I know a lot of you are already paying attention to it, because Texas, as we know, one of the largest hemp markets in the country, has finalized a rule that will force all smokable hemp THC products off retail shelves by the end of this month, March 31st. And that isn't speculation. This isn't a proposal either. This is a finalized rule adopted by the Texas Department of State Health Services after a public hearing and more than 1,400 public comments. So things got real in Texas. So let's break down exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and what it means for the future of hemp in the state of Texas. So here we go. Okay, so first, what's actually being banned right now? Well, beginning March 31st, 2026 of this year, Texas retailers will no longer be allowed to sell the following: THC flower, pre-rolls, live resin, rosin, and any smokable hemp THC product. The reasons come down to how Texas now calculates THC. The state has adopted a total THC formula which counts THCA towards the Delta 9 THC limit. Once the THCA is included, nearly all smokable hemp products exceed the legal threshold, which means this rule effectively creates a statewide ban on smokable, intoxicating hemp products. So this isn't a loophole anymore, and it's no longer in a gray area. It's a de facto prohibition on smokable hemp THC. So how do you feel about that? That's big in so many ways. Second is why. Well, Texas regulators have been under pressure for more than a year to address intoxicating hemp products. When we look back last summer, lawmakers, they attempted to pass legislation that would have banned Delta 8, Delta 10, and THCA products entirely. But as we know, that bill collapsed politically. Back last summer, Governor Greg Abbott, he vetoed the legislation, not because he supported intoxicating hemp products, but because the bill was widely viewed as poorly structured and likely to create enforcement problems. That was the truth. So fast forward to today, and since then, the state has been dealing with the following. 1 was lawsuits, 2 conflicting court rulings, 3 county-by-county enforcement confusion, and also a rapidly expanding intoxicating hemp market. So this new rule now gives regulators a clear enforcement framework without needing to pass new legislation. And then third, we got to think about, what about edibles? And here's where the story gets interesting. Edible hemp products are actually still allowed in Texas, but they will now face the following. 1, stricter packaging rules. 2, stronger testing requirements. 3, significantly higher licensing fees for retailers and manufacturers. So those fee increases are lower than regulators initially proposed, but they could still push smaller operators definitely out of the market. So while edibles do indeed survive the economic structure of the hemp industry in Texas, it's going to change dramatically, and it's happening just around the corner. Again, end of this month. So now let's move to the fourth thing here today. How big is the market shock? Well, Texas has been estimated to have roughly a $5.5 billion hemp market, and a huge portion of that revenue has come from smokable products, especially THC flower, which exploded in popularity over the last 18 months. So by removing smokable products from shelves, retailers are now going to lose their highest margin category. Manufacturers lose a major major distribution channel, and consumers lose access to the most popular product in the market. So for many operators, this represents a massive disruption. But here's the reality. Many companies were skirting the system, which is why this is happening in the first place. So now let's fast forward to the end of this month. What happens after March 31st? Well, retailers must remove all smokable THC products from shelves by the deadline. Manufacturing these products inside Texas will also be prohibited. So enforcement, it's going to include the following. 1 is retail inspections. 2, product seizures. 3, license suspensions. And 4, administrative penalties. And because the rule has already been finalized, get this, legal challenges may face an uphill, and I mean uphill battle. So yeah, things again, they got real in a short period of time. So when you look at now the 6th point, the bigger picture, what Texas is really doing here is drawing a line between regulated cannabis and unregulated hemp intoxicants. So for the past several years, as we know, smokable hemp products, particularly THCA flower, have essentially operated as a legal workaround to prohibition states. Consumers could walk into a smoke shop, buy products that were functionally identical to cannabis sold in licensed dispensaries in other states. But a lot of this product was not tested, and that loophole now, it is closing. And Texas regulators are making it clear they don't want smokable, intoxicating hemp products competing with what would normally be a regulated cannabis market. That's the truth. So while hemp itself isn't being banned, the most cannabis-like version of hemp actually is. So really, where does this leave us? Well, that's edibles. Texas is essentially transitioning to an edibles-focused intoxicating hemp market. So products like gummies, THC beverages, other ingestible products all stay in play and they will still exist, but under stricter rules. So for many companies, that's going to mean the entire business model, it's going to change, not in a couple of weeks, but overnight, because smokable products were often the driving majority of sales. So my final thoughts here today, and the biggest takeaway here, it's simple. Texas isn't eliminating intoxicating hemp, it's actually reshaping it. The state is essentially saying if THC is going to exist in the hemp market, it's going to exist in controlled formats like edibles, non-smokable products that resemble traditional cannabis. And really, if you look at this even in a bigger picture, this matters far beyond Texas, because what we're seeing here could be a preview of how other conservative states and possibly even the federal government decide to handle the intoxicating hemp loophole. As we know, the federal government came down through Congress back in November. They're banning all intoxicating hemp products that will become effective later this year in November. So Texas, one of the largest hemp markets in America, they are going to become one of the first large-scale edibles-only THC markets in the country, and that shift could have ripple effects across the entire U.S. hemp sector. So keep that in mind. A lot of moving parts here, but yeah, stuff got real in the Lone Star State. All right, that's it for our latest TDR Cannabis at 5, powered by free nicotine pouches. Let us know what you think of these changes. Do you agree or disagree? And there's going to be a lot of comments rolled in. So again, have those comments come in. Let's keep this conversation going. And as usual, make sure you stay connected with us by liking, subscribing, and smashing on that bell for all notifications. That's it for now, everybody. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Hope you don't mind. We made some tea. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the bloke you're stealing from. The name's Alistair Rigby, but as far as you're concerned, I'm Willy fucking Wonka, and you're taking a shit in my fucking chocolate factory. Easy, boss. Don't get upset. When I have to go to the dentist, I'm upset. When Liverpool beats Arsenal, I'm upset. But when some little shit decides to take over one of the most profitable territories in the country, I'm beyond fucking upset. I'm very fucking upset. So, from now on, you're under new management. You will work for me, and in return, you'll receive an allowance.
Allowance?
Yes, allowance. As in, I'm allowing you to keep 10%, and I'm allowing you to keep drawing breath on this earth. Now, you either get down or you lay down. What's it gonna be, sunshine?
This wasn't no movie. The smart thing was to say yes, get up, and leave the room. But then I thought to myself, What if this was a movie? Look, fuck you. Fuck the plane you flew in on. Fuck them shoes. Fuck those socks with the bell on it. Fuck your gay-ass fairy faggot accent. Fuck them cheap-ass cigars. Fuck your yuck-mouth teeth. Fuck your hairpiece. Fuck your chocolate. Fuck Guy Ritchie. Fuck Prince William. Fuck the Queen. This is America. My president is black and my Lambo is blue, nigga. Now get the fuck out of my hotel room. And if I see you in the street, I'm slapping the shit out of you.
I think this one spent so much time at the cinema. Teach this cheeky bastard a lesson.
Nobody fucking move!
Oh, man. This is bad.
What is this? A casting call for the Sopranos reunion? Do me a favour. Tell room service nobody here ordered the extra large wok with a side order of woks.
Whoa!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is David Osborne Jr. I represent Joseph Foreman. He does go by the stage name Afroman. And I want to thank you for your service today. This is not going to be an easy case. This is going to take a week of dedication of you to go through. Not an easy thing to ask, but something that we appreciate you are willing to do. This case is about the freedom of speech protections contained within the First Amendment of the United States and the Ohio Constitution. It is about an American citizen's right to make public comments about the actions of public officials, actions that took place in his own home, actions that took place within his home were part of his artistic, creative expressions. And Americans maintain a right to criticize, to mock public officials. And that includes law enforcement officers. On August 21st of 2022, Detective Brian Newland drafted a search warrant. That search warrant was based upon an interview conducted with a confidential informant. That confidential informant gave Mr. Newland information. He put it in a search warrant, and then he went and he saw Judge Roy Gabbert, and Roy signed it. From there, they went to execute that very same day. Officers from the Adams County Sheriff's Office, 7 of the 10, descended upon Mr. Foreman's residence with a hastily prepared search warrant. For a man who's famous for a song that said, "I got high," the amount of force used was excessive, to say the least. After all, based on the song, a bag of Doritos would have been enough to take him out. But they deemed it necessary to not only go to his residence with assault rifles, body armor, and even a riot shield to execute their search warrant. And all that led to a destructive search of Mr. Foreman's residence. Deputies searched Mr. Foreman's home, every one of his outbuildings, behind the couch, under the hood of a car. And you know what they found? A couple little joints, which, let's face it, because I got high, that was expected. And then they found cash. His cash, not theirs. His. They seized all that. It was cataloged, returned to the office by Brian Newland. Newland then does what's required by law. After you search, you have to return a thing to the court that says every single thing you seized, a return on your search warrant to tell the court what you took. In that, he puts a number for the amount of cash that was there. Now, Mr. Foreman, well, let me back up, because there's something I forgot during the search. For a search for marijuana, or whatever was in the search warrant, we'll introduce that later. They disconnected his security camera system. He has a security camera system in the house. He's had break-ins before. Most Americans, he has a security camera system.
Yet in the middle of their search, they disconnect it. They say it's going to be because they want to take it for evidence. But you know where that evidence ended up? On the couch over there. Just disconnect it and leave it there. Now, what precipitated next is the primary focus of the lawsuit. Mr. Foreman did what he's done through his entire career. He took his life experiences and turned them into music, social commentary, and artistic expression. After all, one only need to look at the song, Because I Got High. The lyrics are there. I was going to clean my room because I got high. He was rapping about his life then, and his posts are talking about his life and his experiences. During the search of Mr. Foreman's home, deputies' actions during the search were captured in two places. One, the security system of Mr. Foreman.
So in other words, he forgot to say allegedly. That guy's allegedly a bad cop.
Not everybody.
Don't sue me for defamation.
The officers did. There is body cam footage. And he used this footage from both those locations to make his music videos. He posts them on social media, like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and even TikTok. The plaintiffs decided they did not like what Joe had to say about him, or how they portrayed him, or how he used the footage of their behavior as their job as law enforcement officers, as public officials. Their response was to sue him in order to silence his freedom of speech, threaten his livelihood. After all, have you ever heard of a law enforcement officer suing a person for making a social commentary on them? Or have you ever heard of an officer suing anybody because someone said they didn't like what they had to say? Officers deal with it all the time. I dealt with it during my election. You don't sue people. You respect the freedom of this country and move on. Because, let's face it, if we don't have freedom of speech, what else is there? 250 years ago, the founders of this great country wanted to limit the government's involvement in what government officials had power over to say. And that's why we have the freedom of speech we have today. Before we get to the evidence, I want you to understand this case started with a number of claims. Of them, 2 were dismissed by the court. It should be noted that public officials, such as these gentlemen and Miss Phillips over here, are held to a higher standard than an ordinary person. They're public officials. They are expected to be criticized and mocked. The evidence will indicate that Mr. Foreman created songs with titles like Will You Repair My Door? Lemon Pound Cake. These songs went viral, yes. People connected with the message and understood what Joe was trying to say. The videos and songs resonated with the public because they addressed something that people care deeply about as Americans, and that is how law enforcement officers conduct themselves. Joe also made statements on social media about the search and the officers involved. Some of these statements were openly critical and expressed Joe's opinions about what happened. Statements about missing money. And he used some strong language, some exaggerated language. We call it hyperbolic language, to present his message and his opinion. But all these statements were a matter of public concern as well as statements about his personal opinions. The experience of law enforcement officers executing a destructive search warrant is well beyond question, as it is a matter of public concern. The plaintiffs are going to point to specific statements that Joe made. They're going to claim these statements are defamatory. They are going to attempt to remove them from their context. Statements aren't in a vacuum. There's context. If you get called a name, if my wife yells at me, there's probably context to it. That context is what we're going to show you. Because if you look at those statements in isolation and simply ignore the conduct that sparked them, you can't understand really what was going on. You'll be asked to forget much of that context of the statements. At least not the least of it is that the Plaintiffs are public officials, and the public has a right to criticize them. The evidence will show that Mr. Foreman's statements fall into three categories. The first, many of these statements are his opinions. Opinions are not assertions of fact. They are Joe's subjective views about his encounter with these public officials and the execution of their duties. The First Amendment protects the right to express those opinions, even if they're harsh, even if they're mean, even if the person who is the subject of them hates them. They are protected. Second, many of the statements are exaggerated, rhetorical exaggeration, as you might expect from a musician. After all, if you didn't have Because You Got High, if I said I just didn't want to clean my room, no one would have bought that song. You have to exaggerate something. You'll see he used colorful language, sarcasm, and satire. No reasonable person would have understood these statements to be literal assertions of fact. For example, Mr. Foreman created nicknames and made comparisons to cartoon characters. No reasonable person would understand those as a literal assertion of fact. That is a rhetorical satire flourish. That has always been part of our social and political commentary in this country. After all, pick up the newspaper, you're going to see a political cartoon making fun of somebody. Watch Saturday Night Live. They make fun of people all the time. They even made fun of Joe. It just happens. It's part of our freedom of speech and also Mr. Foreman's artistic expression. The third is the extent that any of the statements assert facts. They relate to matters of public concern. Matters of public concern are exempted. These statements address how the search was conducted, what actions were taken, and how Mr. Foreman experienced this as a homeowner, with these people executing their hasty search warrant. Indeed, the public's concern for such issues is reflected in the viral response that his content got. The plaintiffs bear the burden of proof in this matter, not Joe. They must carry the day. They must prove every element of their claim. Looking at the invasion of privacy due to false light, it's one of the claims that they're claiming. The plaintiffs must prove that Mr. Foreman portrayed them in a false light that would be highly offensive to a reasonable person. The evidence will show that he did not. He used real actual footage of them performing their duties. Stuff in the public domain. Joe's statements were based entirely on his personal experience and within his county of residence, which that is something I do want to clear up. Mr. Foreman lives in Adams County, not Hamilton County. Mr. Klingler is wrong about that, so he is a resident of this county. Regarding the defamation claim, plaintiffs must prove that Mr. Foreman made false statements of fact, not his opinions. That's very important, because we all have opinions as Americans. It's one of the great things about this country is we can share our opinions whether we like them or not. Whether they like them or not, they can hear my opinions. But they must prove those statements were not opinions. Because public officials, they must prove that Joe acted with actual malice rather than just simply exercising his First Amendment right. The evidence will show they cannot meet this burden. Plaintiffs claim that Joe portrayed them in a false light, but evidence will show Joe used direct footage from the security cameras. We can see what they did. They executed the search warrant. It's all on camera. There's nothing false about showing them that way. There's nothing false about Mr. Foreman having opinions about how they did in them. However, when they executed that search warrant, that became a matter of public scrutiny. People could watch it. People could see what was done and form their own opinions. And they can share those opinions. And he has a right to create artistic expression based on those opinions, based on that content.
Hey man, I'm liking the lawyer, boy. Hey, the lawyer on this game today.
That they don't like what Mr. Foreman said about him. But they don't have to. That's part of our right in this country. They don't like his commentary. They don't like his art. But the First Amendment does not protect speech that we like. It protects all speech within it. It protects commentary, criticism, especially such as this. It protects speech that I would not like. Speech I've suffered. It protects it. You may not like the speech you hear, but it's protected. Throughout this trial, you'll hear testimony and see evidence that demonstrates several key points. You will see the actual videos and social media posts Mr. Foreman created. You'll be able to judge for yourselves whether they are false, whether they're his opinions, whether they're artistic expression that is all protected. It's about the right to comment on and criticize public officials without fear of retribution, without fear of getting sued. It is about the right to create artistic expressions that are matters of public concern. The plaintiffs are law enforcement officers. They perform a cardinal public function. But with that public role comes public accountability. It also comes a certain standard that you have to understand. And as public officials, they can be criticized. They may not like it, but it's life. Plaintiffs have the burden of proving their claims. The evidence will show they cannot meet that burden. The evidence will show that Joe's videos, posts, and commentary were artistic expression for matters of legitimate public concern, his opinions on the law enforcement officers, and how they were performing their duties. If the plaintiffs prevail in this case, what message will that send to this country if they prevail? It sends the message that if you criticize law enforcement, if you comment on how they conduct themselves, if you mock them, if you create art with them in it, they can sue you. That's not the America we live in. That's not why we have a Constitution in the First Amendment. That's not why the First Amendment is in the Constitution of the state of Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, upon the examination of the evidence at the end of this trial, I'm confident you'll conclude that Joe did nothing wrong. While the plaintiffs are unhappy, upset with what was said, he exercised a right he had, a right that every American has. He commented on matters of public concern. He created art. He did what any stand-up citizen would do. He made his voice heard to the people. At the end of this trial, I'm going to ask you to return a verdict in favor of Mr. Foreman on every one of their claims. I'll ask that you vindicate his First Amendment rights. And I'll ask that you send a message to the American people that you can criticize public officials and that we are not living in a dictatorship where if you don't like what is said, you just sue someone to shut them up. Thank you.
Hey, he said, you don't just sue people to shut them up. Hey, lawyer in his bag today. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that's the type of lawyer I like talking to. Oh, yeah, we're going to
like right now is like the message kind of like everything that we saying, is it diluted with a younger generation? Are they getting the importance of, like, let's just say, for instance, cadence and how you write a song and how you rap it? Or is it just taking a stab at, you know what, I'm just going to do this?
Well, let me tell you what happened. Something that I've only really heard Snoop and one other person talk about this. This is the problem. Is that when we got our opportunity to get in the game, we were trying to learn the business. We were trying to keep the lights on and the water on and watch the accountants and the lawyers. If you think about Big Crit's generation and Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole, it was only about 4 of them that came out. They missed a whole generation of rap because we didn't grab them young kids and usher them into the game. And it wasn't because of selfishness. I really don't believe that. We just didn't know what we were doing, and we were trying to keep the lights on. Yeah. Right? And so if you think about it, it went from like me and T.I.'s generation straight to Soulja Boy, if you really think about it. And by that time, them kids had figured out their own swag. They figured out their own way to record music. They don't record like us. They don't talk. They don't do anything because we didn't pass it along. Yeah. So for me, I think what ends up happening is I never want sound like our grandparents.
Right.
Everybody
Right,
think
right.
everybody, because if you think about it, bro, Prince thought he was better than Public Enemy. Public Enemy thought they were better than us.
Yeah.
Then it goes down and down instead of understanding that some of that whack, some are whack.
Yeah.
Everybody in our generation wasn't good. Everybody in their generation wasn't bad. It's just that what we got to understand, and people are scared to say this, that it is the consumer's fault. Ain't nobody begging nothing or forcing these people to buy. It's a choice. So what we scared to do is say y'all need to buy better because we scared that they gonna stop buying us.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so people won't tell the truth. It ain't none of these artists' fault. Everybody put their out and then choose. Now, do they market some of this more because it would help them or it makes us look a certain way? Yeah. But at the end of the day, the only reason why I feel like we suffer is because God give us an opportunity to make a choice.
Yeah.
Dogs can't make a choice when they ready to.
Yeah.
When it's in season, it's in season. So we are actually able to think and make choices, and we make bad choices and then blame everybody else.
No, I can't let you pass that one.
What's that?
You just said with dogs in season.
No, when they hot, you
This
trying
ain't
to
a
come
serious
on
show.
now.
This is a happy, have fun show.
What the dogs? What else you want me to say, Juvie? I said the dogs.
Dogs. No dog.
But you got on my record to start talking that shit. Remember you start barking? Got on my record to start barking. What I'm gonna tell Manny Fresh? Manny Fresh just got on my
nasty
dogs,
dog.
the cat.
He was a nasty dog.
But I think honestly, there's one thing that the young generation don't understand about us. A lot of us
do that. Don't do the young generation
this
shit.
is positive, bro. This is positive. What I'm about to say. A lot of us was fixing our own.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that was one thing that we kind of failed them on.
I thought you were about to bash the young generation.
No, I'm saying that we came from deals that we was repairing. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was a lot of why we didn't get a chance to talk to a lot of them. Think about it. You know, when you had a time when you was like, well, I got to figure out who is juvenile. You know what I'm saying?
But see, I always say this: we make too much of that. Cause it's no rules. There's no rules, bro. That's why when you speak of the younger generation, you say them. I always say you can't tell them a thing because there's no rules, bro. There's no script on. We'll say here. There's no script on what kind of music you should make or how your music should be. It's just no rules to it. We want to script it and say the way we did it, and this is how you should do it, the way we did it, and how y'all do it. You're right, but bro, when you taking care of your family and you making some money, they not hearing that. I was that cat. I was that the younger generation you talking about, right? Like I always say this, younger generation right now, what they going through, coming in the game and trying to take care of their family, bill problems, struggling like I'm in and out of jail, going through. That's me. That's the I was going through. So it was just a way out for us. We weren't looking at rap like everybody else was looking at rap. Like, man, we're going to respect the hip hoppers and the people. We didn't give a shit about the people before us. We didn't. I'm trying to take care of my family.
Yeah.
It's the last thing on my mind was what somebody else in rap cared. It didn't matter. And that's why I keep trying to tell the older cats from my era, like, bro, we gotta step away from that. We gotta let that one go. Because when you came out, you came from somewhere.
Yeah.
A struggle. Yep. And we all did. And did somebody do you that?
They all talk. I tell the older generation that now. Y'all, because I can read now, y'all didn't treat me like that when Like a Pimp came out.
Exactly.
Used to turn their nose up at me.
Exactly.
And I won't go there.
No, they did.
But what I will say, Juvie, is you can't lead the people unless you can feed the people. And that's one of the ways that white people get over on us, and that I'm learning now is that we are so talented by God that we always into the talent aspect, and they're setting up systems. So like a wise man told me one time, he said, David Banner, I know how you feel about conventional religion, but what if you speak something to somebody and break the way that they think? You haven't set up something for them to go to replace that. So like if we telling these kids to do the right thing, I'll tell y'all this. Watch this. I'm about to solve everything right now. All these that say that they love hip hop and say that they grew up off hip hop, then why all the young lawyers are still passing laws against hip hop?
That's where the confusion come in. Bro, I never once in my life said I love hip hop.
But that's why.
You know why? Because that ain't why I did it. I love money. I love taking care of I love for my family. I love to be that resource for my family, the end resource of my family. So, I like being. I saw a way that I could get myself out of the situation. I was living in the project on food stamps. Let's keep it gangster. I was living in the project on food stamps, $22 rent every month. I was struggling for real. If you ain't been through it, you will never understand it. You're gonna look at it one. Listen, bro. You're gonna see it one way. You're gonna be trying. You gotta stop. I keep telling cats, stop talking about what the rules are and start pulling these little brothers in and helping them out because you don't know what they've been through. Man, you said when you living on the streets. But man, you said the same exact thing. I'm living on the streets. I'm living on the streets. Listen, I'm gonna show you. I'm living on the streets. I'm going through it. I'm my mom. Everything up in my household, and I got this here telling me my thing hip hop. Like I give a. But watch this. I see you got a Black Panther shirt on, brother. As much as people think that it was about the movement and they thought it was about the leather no, the Black Panthers fed people. They took care of their children. They did. And that's what I'm telling you. If instead of talking, we can get these kids a deal, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying instead of talking about doing right, pay up. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you get all these rich who got money and you create a record company and say, okay, the first year of this record company, we're going to pay y'all money back. And from this point, we're going to get these kids all of their publishing. Right. We can do that right now if enough Black people who cared and got money, instead of talking to these kids, gave them some money and fed them like Juvie is saying. We're saying the same thing. It's about the money, bro. Yeah. It's about the money, bro. It's about what Nipsey say. What would Nipsey say? It's about your base needs first. Hungry.
But can we agree you're a different animal? You know what I'm saying? From a lot of folks. I am. And you see strong characteristics in some people. I do. You know what I'm saying? I think you are a different person from a lot of people. You know, and you can only tell your story. You see what I'm saying? But when you meet somebody, and the perfect example is David Vanner. When I met David, I said, "Hey, bro, I'm proud of you," and I knew that changed something in him. Because as a man, you're not used to nobody telling you that. You're not used to nobody telling you.
You know what used to be in that briefcase I used to carry around?
Probably some disc or something from songs.
That was Submachine Gun. Man, I used to praise a lot of the rappers when I was young. My thing, I praised a lot of the rappers, right? And I used to put them on these pedestals because I used to think Ice Cube, Ice Cube doing it. Thing, you know, Scarface. And my thing was some of the things they said in the songs related to me. And that's all it took. You know, and that's what goes on right now with the youngsters. We're young boy and everybody. Yeah. All it takes is for you to say something or do something that relates to me. You know, I'm at that age, I'm like, that relates to me so much. And I get locked in on it. That's what happens to a lot of these artists. The confusion happens when we clash with the older artists because there's rules that's in place that the new artists don't want to have. They don't want to follow those guidelines. They're like, man, who made the rules when this cat over here tell me
in the first place?
Yeah, but when this cat over here tell me I'm worth $5 million, you tell me my thing no rap music. But this cat who run this big record company tell me I'm worth $25 million.
Yeah.
You know, so what about when things like that happen and you hear the negative? What you think is the best move for a kid like that?
Man, that's hard to say. A young cat told me that from Mississippi. His name is Coke Boomaye. He was like, Banner, what you don't understand is that what we used to shoot videos for, that's what them kids getting for budgets now. The whole budgets. They getting record deals for that amount, unless they are super big artists, right?
Right.
But then what you got to understand, some of these kids ain't seen more than $1,000 at a time. So it's hard for you to tell them nothing. And that's what I mean. Unless we set up the system where we can say, well, here, don't worry about their money. We got some money for you right here. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm on right now. And that's why I say that I'm opulent. I'm about money. I don't want to talk to these kids about doing right. Me, Ali Sadiq, and
shout out to Ali Sadiq too, man.
And Ryan Davis. Ali Sadiq taught me something, bro, and it punches me in my chest, man. He taught me that most of these don't like us, bro, because we men that stand for something, bro. Yeah. And so they don't really want us around. So what we got to start doing is with each other. And Ali said, I got it, Banner. Come to Houston on New Year's. We're going to throw a show. He got me. And he said, Ryan Davis was the one that hooked me and you up, so let's put him in the mix. Bro, it was over 5,000 people there. Ali did that show on his own, bro. Yeah. With his own money. Bro, I had 70% of my bread 2 months before the show. That money was so gone by the time I got there. But he said, and I told Ali this. I said, Ali, now I can go talk to these kids. Because at first we're talking theory. One thing I always say is kids don't want to sell dope, but they see what you will get if you got some good dope and you on the corner. You tell a kid to go to college, what you gonna get is a bill. So what we have to do is show them what that look like. Yeah. Bro, you know me, I was never into the cars and the jewelry and shit. But what I realized is kids start telling me, oh, David, you can be a revolutionary and drive a Ferrari? I'm like, well, yeah. If you're smart. Yeah. You know, if you know what to do with your brand. Yeah. Right. And they was like, okay, we'll listen to that you talking if we could get that Ferrari. And if that's what it takes, Malcolm said by any means necessary. So if it means that I gotta, buy that Ferrari. So y'all listen, I ain't got no problem with it. I get it now, Jimmy.
From summer's end till the winter comes, till gray days turn to yellow ones. I stayed grinding for mine. I try to tell them once, to travel to the moon, you gotta brave the elements. And battle many goons, you gotta cage the elephants. It's elementary, I speak with a certain eloquence. I smoke hella blunts, a habit I've been developed since I was a young boy playing the silver ball. See them stand, feel them fall, Metallica, kill them all. Living like this is my last moment, but a moment could last forever. Snap a picture in that colon. Get whatever you going, sip in your glass, hold it up. Hit the side on mine, get the tip in the back, go in. So many days we were sitting low. Better get busy living till the day you giving and they get to go where the sinners go. Pulling the cash and spend it slow. Better make it fast, but them should know. Matter no money, yo, it's all expendable. You'll be alright, yeah.
Of course, y'all never go check out the beach from the Big Homie. Appreciate that intro. But y'all already know, before we do get up out of here, we do got to share the video link on Buy Me a Coffee, which I'm going to do afterwards because since this is still live, I got some other stuff to do, right?